Alright, Star Wars Zero Company. Turn-based tactics, Clone Wars era, and the review scores are close to unanimous. 88 on OpenCritic, 91% of critics recommending it. On Metacritic, 41 reviews, 40 positive, 1 mixed, 0 negative. So that should be the whole video. Except look at the spread inside that average. The top end is a 95 and a 96. The bottom end is a 7 and a 7.5. And the same story that one outlet calls a new all-timer, Rogue One and Knights of the Old Republic tier, another one calls sauceless. And almost everybody who mentions the technical state of it describes the same thing, including the people scoring it in the 90s. So, what it actually is, what the tactics do differently, the two things reviewers openly disagree about, the thing the score does not tell you, and where I land. Zero Company is developed by Bit Reactor with Respawn Entertainment, published by EA. $50, PC, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, single player. It is not on Game Pass and it is not on EA Play at launch, so hold on to that because it changes the verdict compared to most big releases. It is set during the Clone Wars. You play Hawks, a former Republic officer who is fully customizable, gender, face, voice, leading a unit of misfits and mercenaries called Zero Company against a threat that is not the Separatists. You build your own astromech droid too, for support or explosives. Between missions you run a base called the Den. Research, upgrades, recruitment, an armory where you mod and repaint weapons, and a galaxy map where you spend intel to unlock operations. Time moves in cycles, so some objectives expire while you are doing something else. And outside of combat, you walk the base in third person and talk to your squad, rather than clicking through menus. Campaign length lands between 30 and 40 hours depending on who you ask, and it is linear with no New Game Plus. So on paper, it is a full price, single player, 30-hour tactics campaign with no subscription on-ramp. Now what it actually plays like, because the shorthand everyone uses is Star Wars XCOM, and that is only half right. The skeleton is XCOM. Turn-based, cover-based, a squad you take out and bring home, and a lot of Bit Reactor's senior staff came off that series. The description one review used was the Terminator skeleton of pure XCOM. But three things are genuinely different. Each operative gets 3 action points per turn instead of 2, which means you can move, shoot, and still do something else rather than choosing. There is no fog of war hiding the whole map. You can see where reinforcements are coming from and when, which turns it from reacting to planning 2 steps ahead. And Overwatch is not a circle, it is a cone you aim, with accuracy that changes across it. There is also a support system, where a second operative chips in on someone else's attack once per turn. On top of that, there are bonds between soldiers, which unlock abilities when 2 of them get along. There is cross-training, so an operative can carry a second specialization, and there is permadeath, which you can switch on or leave off. That last one matters more than it sounds, and I will come back to it. So what did reviewers actually like? The combat, almost without exception. The phrase at PC Gamer was Star Wars XCOM, but even better than that sounds, with none of it coming at the cost of challenge or crunchy complexity. At Game Informer, it scratches the same itch that XCOM always has, and if that's what you're looking for in a tactics game, it's very satisfying. The cast came up nearly as often. The entire cast shares a similar easy charisma, one review said, a winning family of friends ensemble straight out of the BioWare playbook. Another described growing attached to every soldier, and how bonds make that mechanical instead of decorative. Mission design got singled out too. One review described a standout where it was dealing with enemy units and running for an extraction point at the same time, rather than clearing a room and moving on. Production values are the third thing. Fully voiced, cinematic camera work, real set pieces, and the kind of Star Wars presentation that tactics games almost never get. Even the reviews that pushed back agreed on this part. Nobody argues that the tactics are bad. That is not where the disagreement is. The disagreement is about the story, and it is enormous. One end? It's also a new all-timer Star Wars story. I'm talking Rogue One, Knights of the Old Republic, TIE Fighter tier. That is a 90 out of 100. Elsewhere, you get some of the best Star Wars storytelling and a memorable and diverse cast. The other end is a 7 out of 10, and it is blunt. The experience is weighed down by sauceless writing and a plot with the narrative weight of a non-canon shonen anime film. On the villains, they have no Riz as antagonists. On the main antagonist specifically, the story's biggest failure, acting as generically evil as possible. And an 8 out of 10 sits between them. Excellent tactical gameplay and resource management, it says, buoying what is otherwise just a competent if unremarkable story and characters. It closes with, I wish the story had just a bit more juice. Same game, same campaign. One of them thinks it belongs next to Knights of the Old Republic, and another thinks the antagonists are cardboard. If the writing is why you buy Star Wars games, that spread is the single most useful thing in this video. The second disagreement is about pacing, and it decides whether you should start it on a weeknight. The optimistic version calls it a tightly paced 30-hour tactics game. The long version puts it at roughly 40, and argues the first half could have been 10 hours shorter. That same review is specific about why. The first 12 hours lean on a generic antagonist faction, and side missions it describes as grinding filler. After that, it changes. The canon Star Wars material arrives, characters you recognise show up, the maps get more interesting, and special operatives unlock mechanics of their own. Which is the opposite of what another outlet found. Their line was a rocket that takes off vibrantly and then coasts a little too early. So one reviewer says the good part is the back half, and another says the good part is the front. What both descriptions have in common is that the middle sags for somebody. The safe reading? This is a game that asks for patience somewhere, and nobody agrees where. And here is the thing the 88 does not tell you. 4 separate reviews across the whole scoring range describe the game breaking. 2 hard crashes and 1 severe graphical glitch, says the 90. Pop-in is a problem on PC as it stands, textures load slowly, and a couple of missions went wrong badly enough to need a restart, says an 8. The 7 mentions weird pauses between choices and the camera absolutely losing its mind. And the 7.5 is the most detailed of all. Image freezing in cutscenes on a machine with a top-end graphics card. The interface vanishing mid-mission, so actions could not be executed. The AI throwing logic errors when hunting units that were no longer on the map. And conversations with invisible characters. That reviewer's own advice was to avoid Iron Man mode and save often. Now put that next to the feature list. Permadeath. A galaxy map with objectives that expire. 30 to 40 hours. Linear. No new game plus. Those are exactly the systems that punish a crash hardest. So, is Star Wars Zero Company worth it? Here is where I land. If you want a tactics game, buy it. That part is not in question. The combat is the best reviewed thing about it, and even the 7 out of 10 calls the fighting fun. 2 conditions. Do not turn permadeath on for a first playthrough, and do not run Iron Man. 4 reviewers reported the game breaking, one of them twice, and permadeath plus a crash is how a 30-hour campaign turns into a grudge. And be honest with yourself about why you buy Star Wars games. If it is the tactics, this is a very easy recommendation. If it is the writing, the people who played all of it split so far apart that one called it Knights of the Old Republic tier and another said it has no source. Read 3 reviews from people whose taste in stories matches yours before you spend $50. There is no subscription here, no free trial to sample it on, and no New Game Plus if you want a second run at your choices. It is the full price or nothing. Which is a shame, because everything about the tactics says this is the Star Wars strategy game people have been asking for since the 90s. It just shipped a bit early. Link is below. If you have played it, did the writing land for you, or did you come for the tactics and tune out the plot?